There's smoke, but not necessarily fire, about a possibly interesting rumor of the Reds adding a relief pitcher, and I love it.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Reds. We are your daily source for all things Cincinnati Reds. I'm Stephen Offenbaker. That guy over there, he's Jeff Carr. We have a combined 14 years of experience covering these Cincinnati Reds. We love baseball. We love this team, and we have taken our love of the game and our love of the Cincinnati Reds, and we have turned it into information for you. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day, most of the time. On today's podcast, we are going to get into where there's smoke, there might be fire, and talk about the Carlos Estevez rumors that you have all seen floating around. It's going to lead us to naturally have a conversation about what that would mean for Alexis Diaz. And then, of course, because we are live here on YouTube today, we're going to get into all of your questions and comments on today's show, which is brought to us by who, Jeff? Because I just lost my rundown.
It is brought to us by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase.
Yeah, sorry about that. I clicked a wrong button. All right, Jeff, let's dive into these rumors. Where there's smoke, there might be fire, but not necessarily. Given the sources behind the rumors that we are hearing, I imagine that there have been some conversations, and we usually hear these things when the other side, not the red side, but when the other side is trying to, maybe force a little bit of movement in the negotiations. That's usually when we see these kind of things with the Reds. So I believe these conversations are happening. I'm not necessarily sure we're anywhere close to a done deal.
No, and that's kind of where I want to start with this, because I love these rumors. I love that the Reds are linked to Carlos Estevez. In fact, I remember the initial rumor came from John Heyman in the New York Post linking the Reds and Estevez about a week or 2 weeks ago, but said that they were far apart financially. That was before the FanDuel Sports Network deal that the Reds struck up and reportedly got a little bit more flexibility with. So I wondered if that kind of bridged the gap, got the Reds to the point where they were going to be able to afford Estevez. But I also saw in the report from the Inquirer corroborated Bob Nightingale's report and said, yes, the Reds are linked to Estevez, but a source close to Carlos Estevez says that they're not close. So there's probably talking going on, but there isn't pen to paper right now. We're not talking about an inevitability of when, not if. There's still a little bit more if in there. But I love this thing. I love this thought that Nick Krall has about improving the bullpen. Look, is he an outfielder? No. Is Carlos Estevez going to hit in the middle of the order? No. But this will take the pressure off of Alexis Diaz. This will take the pressure off of what we believe will be Graham Ashcraft in the bullpen and becoming that back end of the bullpen stopper. This will be the guy that can lead this bullpen, and you can feel really confident whenever Terry Francona needs to call on Carlos Estevez at the end of ball games. Plus, it will kind of essentially make Alexis Diaz the 1B, which I kind of think he was setting himself up to be last season. I think this is a beautiful move for the Reds right now.
I would be cautiously optimistic if Estevez became a member of the Reds. Looking at his stats from last year, Jeff, he's coming off a career year. That makes me nervous right out of the gate because, he hasn't been that guy that he was last year, but he was good. I mean, I'm not saying that it was bad. 2022 in Colorado, he had a 3.47 ERA. And then 2023 in Los Angeles for the Angels, a 3.9 ERA. Not horrible. Pitched 57 innings in 2022, 62 innings in 2023. But last season, between Los Angeles and Philadelphia, he combined for a 2.45 ERA. He had 26 saves in 55 innings. Looking at his strikeouts per nine, 8.2, not completely overpowering, but fine. But his walks per nine were only 2. Better than your guy, Alexis Diaz. So there is a lot to be excited about. Now, if you take that in totality with the idea that Alexis Diaz would still be on this team, and I know we're going to talk about that here coming up in a bit, and that Graham Ashcraft would also be out there in the back end of this bullpen. Now you're getting into the territory where every night in the 9th inning, in the 8th inning, there's guys that can come out of the pen and be reasonably relied upon to put a stop to a rally, to put a stop to another team coming back. And that's really something that this team's kind of been lacking, right? More than one intimidating guy in the back end of the bullpen, so that every night when going into a game that, Alexis Diaz might not be available, there's somebody else that the manager can lean on that is at least going to, make the opposing hitter's palms get sweaty before he steps into the batter's box. And that would be a big add. Adding Graham Ashcraft and Estevez both to Alexis Diaz, that's a big add. That makes this
you turn the bullpen into a strength, especially from the effect that you would get on guys like Sam Maul and Brent Suter and Emilio Pagan, who are solid relief pitchers. They're solid guys that I'm happy to have on the team. But if you're telling me that your 8th inning guy is Emilio Pagan, I got some questions. If you're telling me that your 8th inning guy is Brent Suter or Sam Maul, I got some questions, because then that also means you're not very deep, because the guys behind them are the guys like Yasser Zulueta and Alex Young and Shaw and all those different guys that they're bringing in on either non-roster invites, or they're going to be minor league players that are working for an opening day spot on the roster. This would be the kind of move that, look, if you can't improve the outfield, which I still believe that there are moves out there, they're not the press conference outfield moves that we thought, but there's moves out there. But if you can't do that big move, if you improve everything else like they've done, pitching depth in the starting rotation and having a little bit more depth on the infield and having a little bit more depth in the bullpen, you're building a stronger team. And we have seen, like, you can't do it with just a couple of guys. You need a whole ball club. And this is a whole ball club type of move. Carlos Estevez, to me, Steve, like you mentioned, it was a career year, was a bit of a fluky year. The 2 seasons before that, 1 year in Colorado, 1 year in Los Angeles, his ERA was more in the 3s than it was in the 2s. But I find interesting that his strikeouts were down last year. His walks were down, but so were his strikeouts. I wonder if he found a different way to pitch. I wonder if he found a more reliable way to pitch. And I wonder if Derek Johnson can kind of tap into that a little bit and accentuate that. And we see more of the 2.4 than we see of the 3.9.
He was an all-star in 2023 for the Angels, right? And you look at his strikeout numbers that year, he struck out 11.3 per 9 in 2023. And you're right, his numbers were down, but the key thing there that you hit on is that his walks went down with it. So It kind of just on paper, I mean, I haven't watched him pitch very much. I've seen a couple highlights, haven't really watched him pitch, but just looking at what the numbers did, it kind of screams of starting to pitch to contact, right? And then letting your defense work versus trying to overpower hitters. So which
is what Terry Francona is preaching.
Which is what Terry Francona is preaching. So he's a good fit. That's where I was going with that. I think you're right in looking at those numbers. It makes him a good fit for the philosophy, I think, that both Terry Francona and Derek Johnson are going to be pushing.
And I think that he's the opposite of Alexis Diaz, right? Alexis Diaz is pitching around guys. Alexis Diaz is trying to get guys to swing and miss. He's not necessarily relying on that pitch to contact thing. And I do find it interesting. Alexis Diaz is elite at keeping the ball on the ground. And I wonder if they try to maybe grow that part of his game a little bit, like say, hey, stop trying to nibble so much and get that ground ball. You're really good at getting the grounder. See if you can play that. But Carlos Estevez has done this. I mean, he's going to be 32 years old this coming season. So we're talking about a guy that's on the other side of his prime, but as a relief pitcher goes, he's still got a little bit more time in there to really work with that. I find it interesting. I saw some reports that have it a 3-year, $10 million per year contract. And I think that's probably where the Reds were having the hang up a couple of weeks ago before they got the FanDuel Sports Network deal. $10 million should not like disqualify the Reds from signing somebody, but all the reports have been that their finances are so tight. So opening up the pocketbooks just a smidge with this FanDuel Sportsbook deal probably opens them up to this deal.
It probably does, because if you recall, when we saved all of that money by not having to make that compensatory draft pick, and I'm being I'm being facetious. But when we saved all that money, that got added to the Major League
super
payroll.
couponing there. That's what
and
Major League Baseball super
Krall,
couponing.
but Nick Krall said at the time, that adds a little bit. That gives us a little bit of wiggle room. And then they got the FanDuel Sports deal where Nick Krall came out again and said it helps. It doesn't help a ton, but it helps. We have some room. This seems to be a deal that's within that range, within that limit. Now, if they sign Estevez, that's it. They're done. They're done signing guys. We'll know then that we're rolling with the outfield that we got. We'll know then that Buck Farmer's not coming back. We'll know that this is the team pretty much. But I think there is $10 million to be had in what remains of the budget that was set for 2025.
It's fake money, and it's hard for us to really relate to it, but it does seem like that is an attainable number for this team, even at this juncture. But we mentioned Alexis Diaz. This move has some people thinking that you sign Estevez, maybe you trade Alexis Diaz, and I think that idea is just a bunch of horse hockey.
You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets to events with Gametime. Just download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Gametime is the app that Jeff and I both use when we head down to Reds games. We go find our favorite restaurant, have some dinner, grab a drink, and then right about time for first pitch, we jump on the Gametime app, we grab our tickets, and walk across the street to the stadium. It's just that easy. We get great deals, very greatly discounted prices. If you're going to a venue, they don't just have baseball. You can get hockey. You can get basketball. You can get all of the sports on Gametime. If you don't know the venue you're going to, just jump on there. They've got a view from your seat, and with all-in pricing, you know exactly what you are going to pay, and you're going to get $20 off. Again, just download that Gametime app, create your account, use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create your account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time.
We are talking Cincinnati Reds here today, all day, every week, every month, all off season long, getting you ready for 2025 and what should be a charge to the playoffs with Terry Francona at the head. And Steve, I do want to take something back real quick. I mentioned that Alexis Diaz was elite at ground balls. I'm wrong on that. I don't know where I got that from. I'm completely wrong on that.
If wishing made it so.
Bottom 5% of forcing ground balls. But no, I've seen this, and I've got a lot of questions on this on social media and on our subtext as well. I forget to shout out subtext, but I found that login, so we're back on that. Locked On Reds insiders are wondering, does this mean if the Reds were to sign Estevez today, do they trade Alexis Diaz tomorrow? And I'm here to tell you, if that's what happens, I'm much less enthused about this deal. Not to say that I would rather have Alexis Diaz than Carlos Estevez. I would rather have both of them than one. I think both of them make this team better. The trade's got to be real good for me to think that trading Alexis Diaz would help this team. It's got to be for an outfielder that moves the needle. And I saw something. It's not from a reputable account, so I'm not even going to shout out the account, but I saw some rumor that the Reds and the Diamondbacks were going to – that's not real. That's not happening. But also, if that were real, that would be a horrible trade. And so it better be like Alexis Diaz and somebody else for Luis Robert, and then we're talking. But no, I don't see that happening. I don't see a deal that makes sense. Estevez plus Diaz, not one or the other.
Well, first of all, Alexis Diaz and somebody else for Luis Robert is a terrible deal. Let's get off of that pine box right now. Nick Krall has looked in the camera multiple times and said the problem that he's having with trades right now is everybody wants major league talent. He's not willing to trade major league talent. So I don't think either one of those are possibilities until the White Sox are willing to just accept a deal for prospects. Then we can talk about your guy. In the meantime, I think that if you look at this team and people that cover this team every day are pretty much in agreement that while the bullpen has some interesting possibilities, it still needs to be addressed in some way. It is not quite ready for prime time. The problem with that has been that there's just been this glaring need for an outfielder for multiple years now. So everybody's focused on that instead of looking over here at the bullpen. When I sat down with our guy, Chris Welsh, last week, when he was here on Island, we talked about the bullpen extensively, and he feels like it it needs to be addressed with some help. So for me, this is not about getting part A to be able to trade part B. That's not it. The bullpen still needs help. If you're not going to address the outfield, which I think at this point, there's enough signals to say they're probably not going to address the outfield. You need to strengthen the bullpen. They've, I think, done a good job with the starting pitching. You strengthen the bullpen. You look at the guys that you've got returning and their impact on the wins above replacement and the stats and what the lineup is going to look like. And then you can look at the outfield and say, while it's not optimal, Terry Francona will be better at managing it than David Bell was, and they'll get more out of it. Is that hope as a strategy? It absolutely is hope as a strategy. But I think that's where we are. I think that's where we are in this offseason. I think it might be time to start embracing that that's where we are, because that's just what they're going to give us. And in this scenario, going and getting Estevez kind of makes all those pieces line up. And then we can start talking about how you manage with what you got and hope that player A, B, and C returns to what we thought they were going to be or ups their game. So, I mean, I know that's not what people want to hear, Jeff, but I think that that's the reality of the situation that they're in. Alexis Diaz is not going anywhere.
No, and I think that there's a connect the dots mentality with this where they say, hey, we're getting a really good relief pitcher. We can afford to lose a really good relief pitcher. The thing about Alexis Diaz is, including this year, they have 3 years left of control for him. 3 years left of cost control, arbitration control. They hadn't had to sign him to a long-term deal. They still got 3 years to figure out who he is. Was last year disconcerting? Yeah, but the 2 years before that were pretty darn good. And I feel like there's far more runway for a guy like Alexis Diaz to figure it back out, right? I mean, we're talking about a rough walks per nine, and he's kind of had a rough walks per nine for his entire career. But the problem last year was his strikeouts really plummeted. And had his strikeouts been at the normal level, I still think we're talking about that all-star guy that we had in 2023. And if they could get that back, whatever it was, could it be overuse? Could it be the way that David Bell employed the bullpen? Could it be a number of different things? Does that work itself out this year? I think that is more likely than the Reds finding enough value to trade a guy with 3 years of cost control left and getting an outfielder back that is comparable. I don't think that market exists. As much as Nick Krall is talking about trades are MLBers for MLBers right now, and that's really what's got us turned off. That's him telling us that if they're asking for an MLBer, they ain't getting them. So Alexis Diaz is not on the table, as much as there are some people that think that, well, 1 + 1 = 2. Alexis Diaz should be out the door if Estevez is in the door. That's not what we're talking about at all. I don't see that happening.
No, I'm 100% in agreement with that. I feel like, it's hard with this team, Jeff, because I am not going to carry the water for Nick Krall. I refuse to do that. No. He has failed in as much as
that's what Stanley Cups are for, right?
There's been some glaring needs on this team that he has simply failed F grade to address. His handling of the outfield during his tenure as GM and now president of baseball operations is a big fat F. That is what he gets. But also, I'm not willing to be in the camp of they didn't get the 40 homer outfielder, therefore it's them and the Pirates fighting for the bottom of the division. No, I don't believe that either. I don't believe that either. I have been saying for a couple weeks now, looking at the totality of this offseason, the moves that they made with the starting rotation, solid stuff. C+ to B- grading. The stuff that's been done with the bullpen, I give it a C. If they add one more arm or tell me for sure that Graham Ashcraft is going out there, that raises that grade just a little bit. And if you go get a Buck Farmer after that, whatever, that puts that at C+ to B- territory. Bringing in Gavin Lux and having a better option for a utility with slightly better defense than what you were going to do with Jonathan India. That's a move that doesn't move the needle a whole lot, but it does move the needle. So it's not been a complete, it's not been a total failure off season in totality. It's been a failure to address the outfield, but this team has the ability. And yes, there is some hope involved. And yes, we do need players to bounce back and overcome some of the things, whether it's a shoulder injury from Matt McClain or Spencer Steer's sophomore slump. but there are reasons to look at this team and think they're not going to be a last place team right now before they've ever played a game. And I can look at this team and see a team that can compete for a wild card spot. This team is built already to be in the conversation of wild card. Now, if everything goes their way and the hope as a strategy pays off, and God help us, they could be competing for the division. But I'm not ready to say, they didn't get Santander. That's it. I'm out. I'm following the Cubs. Screw it. The Reds are going to be fighting the Pirates. I'm not doing that.
I was going to say I've seen that. I haven't seen the bit talking about following the Cubs or anything like that. But no, I've seen people saying that because they didn't go get the high-priced outfielder guy, that doesn't matter what else they did, they've still made some solid moves. And I'm with you. I think if they had Estevez, I would be tempted to discuss a C plus B minus, somewhere along that grade for the offseason.
Jimmy McFarland says, did we sign Charlie Sheen, aka Carlos Estevez? If you know what that's about. But Carlos Estevez has to play Wild Thing as his music, right?
That would be great.
It's like it has to be like, that's just, there's no option.
Well, I love too. There's a lot of pictures, and actually the picture I used for the thumbnail on this episode of him celebrating a strikeout. He does like this, like he's like, Dragon Ball Z type stuff. I love that. That's or it's a Mighty Morphin Power Ranger. He's holding a Morpher. I bet. I don't know.
How do you manage to always turn everything into a Comic-Con around here? What the hell?
But no, I think that this is the type of move. Like you build a bullpen of guys you can trust with him. You bring in Brian Shaw, a guy who Terry Francona knows, who I think is going to have a pretty decent role on this team, at least to start. We'll see if he continues to earn it throughout the season. But you'll have him. You'll have Sam Maul, who I trust a lot. He's high up on the bullpen trust for the Reds for me. I like what Sam Maul brings to the table. I think Emilio Pagan's going to bounce back. We're going to talk about a pretty strong bullpen, and that's not even including whatever Graham Ashcraft may turn into as he gets used to his bullpen role. And that's on top of a starting pitching staff that I feel a lot better about. I feel like Nick Krall has done a lot of work. It's just not been the work that we wanted. It's like the kid, right before Christmas. I know Christmas is past and we don't want to think about that, but like the kid that asked for a very specific toy in Christmas and he got a whole bunch of other really cool shit, but he didn't get that one toy. And so now he's mad about because he didn't. He's like, the whole Christmas it's ruined, man. I hate Christmas.
Ruined.
I hate it.
You hate me. You hate me. All right, Jeff. this is good. I think you and I are both off the rails on that today. Sorry. I'm gonna have to put a little warning today. All right, Jeff, we're going to move into my favorite part of these lives, which is getting into the questions and the comments over at the live comment section. We're going to start doing that right after this.
In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. What sets SelectQuote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage of up to $5 million, no medical exam required. And it's more affordable than you'd think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/locked on. Go to selectquote.com/locked on today and get started. That's selectquote.com/locked on. SelectQuote. They shop, you save.
If you can't watch us here live on YouTube, make sure you take us on the road with you. We are available on every single podcasting audio channel there is out there. Take us to the gym with you. Take us in the car. Take us for a walk down in the park. We want to talk Reds baseball with you everywhere. All right, Jeff, let's do it. Let's get into the questions and the comment. I know we're going to be talking a lot about outfielders here in a minute, for sure. Our buddy Josh, how you doing? New handle here, I see. Josh says, I agree the pitching moves make things better, but I would still be much more comfortable if this was an outfield improvement instead of another pitcher. Yeah, me too. But listen, this is why I think the $10 million number that Jeff threw out there a little while ago is important, because they're not getting any meaningful outfielder for $10 million. They may be able to make a trade for a platoon player, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. But to go get a meaningful free agent outfielder, I just don't see that 10 million is going to get it done. But if you can add for $10 million, a little bit more stabilization to the back end of the bullpen, it makes what's happening in the outfield now, it doesn't make it okay, but I guess it makes it a little more palatable.
I would agree with that. In fact, I was thinking about this the other day. Randall Grichuk is probably going to sign for something close to what Jesse Winker signed for, maybe a little bit more, but that would put him in the $10 million range. I think Jesse Winker got $7.25 million to return to the Mets. So let's put it that way. Put it to you, put it to the chat. What do you think? Would you rather have Carlos Estevez or Randall Grichuk? Because I think I'd rather have Carlos Estevez.
And I agree with that take too. And again, God, I hate having to be this Freychild advocate, but
you came up with the club, my friend. You are the card carrying member.
I am, and I hate it. But the numbers say that that outfielder used correctly, which David Bell could have never done, but that outfielder, the combination platoon, straight platoon, where Stuart Fairchild never sees a right-handed pitcher ever, that outfielder is good for 115 to 120 in OPS plus. I'll take a plus 20 outfielder in right field platoon. I'm okay with that. And damn, I don't want to be okay with that. And I'm okay with that.
And I'm not going to lie, I was thinking about this last night. The side of me that has had a few beverages also wonders where Rhys Hines plays into all this. Like, I get it.
We haven't talked about him at all. We haven't talked about him at all.
There's not a lot of analytics that love him right now. There are some metrics on like Baseball Savant talking about how hard he hits the ball, and it's all very, very intriguing. But definitely the chase metric and the whiff and all that stuff is very uninspiring. But where could he be? And I know that, we just talked with Doug Gray, and he didn't seem to be very high on the re-signs train either. There's part of me that thinks that he could be something for this team if employed correctly. I don't think employing him correctly is playing him every day either. That's the other part of this. Like, he's going to be a situational, we need some pop type guy. Like, I just watched Major League the other day. Is he going to be Pedro Serrano? No. But could he come up with a big home run here, or, a couple of home runs in this season? I think it could happen. I don't love that we're talking ourselves into this. That's what we wanted to avoid.
Exactly. Brad Houston weighs in on this. Yeah. I want your take on this comment from Brad Houston. Brad says Grichuk is not a replacement for Fairchild in a platoon. He's an everyday player. Look at his OPS versus right-handed pitching. I don't see him as an everyday guy. Do you see him as an everyday guy? Am I wrong?
I mean, he's better against.
Well, he's better than Fairchild, right?
Fairchild is. He was a 2 WAR.
But is he better than Fraley against right-handed pitching?
No,
because that's really the question. The question is not about Fairchild, because I wouldn't let Fairchild face a righty if it was my mom on the mound. I'm just not going to let that happen. But
could you then employ Spencer Steer in a infield role, or even at DH, and have Grichuk play left?
You could absolutely do that.
Could be,
as long as you still get Spencer Steer. As long as you still get Spencer Steer full-time at bats. So, yes. I mean, I don't care where he plays every day, as long as he gets full-time at bats.
Another point to that random rumor from the no-name account, Spencer Steer was included in the horrible trade. Like, it was horrible. It was horrible. No.
Adrian says, hey, Jeff, there are reports that the Angels want Chase Petty. I think everybody wants Chase Petty, but they want Chase Petty for Ward. Chase Petty, Taylor Ward, straight up, Jeffrey, would you do it?
First of all, yo, Adrian. Second of all, no, that's too much. I would not give up Chase Petty for Taylor Ward. Taylor Ward's solid. I mean, he's another guy you can play every day, but I wouldn't.
Chase Petty's major league ready, gang. He's going to pitch in the big leagues this year.
Doug said he's going to be the first one up.
Yeah. So I don't. That's too much.
Yeah.
Let me get to the next one here.
We will finally be able to evaluate the Sonny Gray trade with the Twins.
Carrie had a good one. Let me go back up to it. Carrie. Hi, Carrie. How you doing? Glad you're here. Carrie says the Red strategy, ? Tito and coaching to improve the lineup, defense, and correct errors. Yes, that's strategy number 1. Agreed. Strategy 2, better pitching will cut down on runs. Yes. This combination equals more wins. Yes. Tito's smarter than David Bell. That equals a few more wins. Yes. And then you get guys like Matt McClain back and hopefully a healthy CES back. And you limit having to play guys in horrible positions like Stuart Fairchild versus righties and Jamer Candelario playing because there's nobody else, yet we know he's injured. Things like that. You can start to take those things out of the equation. This is where I'm saying I don't want to carry the water for Nick Krall, but I also see how he could be sitting in his desk and basically saying all of these same things to himself, right? Like, okay, I didn't get the outfielder that I know I need, but A, B, C, D, E. I can see logic behind this, not in as much as, oh, well, hope is a strategy again, but there are some real tangible things here that Carrie is pointing out that are going to in fact lead to more wins.
Well, and I think that she's even got a start of this and you got a start of this. Let's take it a step further. I think if you put all of this together with what Nick Krall has said, he said at the beginning of the offseason, he wants guys that prioritize contact over power. And then at some point he said, everybody wants major leaguers. They don't want prospects. And then there was also some stuff about how much guys are costing on the free agent market. And you combine that with the fact that the Reds continue to be linked to pitching, whether it be trading for pitching or signing pitching. I think the market for the guy that we want is much higher than we think. I think it's like saying, look, I need a car. Can I get a Mercedes? Should I get a Mercedes? Sure. Am I able to afford a Mercedes? No. I got to go look at something else that I can afford and that can work for me. And I think that Nick Krall has had to pivot. There's not been a market for him to go get the middle of the order right-handed outfield bat that we want. So he's trying to figure out a different way to make the team better rather than sit on his hands and say, well, we tried. We called the right-handed power hitting outfielder and then they said no. So we'll see you guys in Goodyear. See you in February. No, he's doing something else.
Brad checks back in and thinks you were on the right track there, Jeff. Grichuk is your everyday left fielder. Okay. Look, I'm not opposed. And I'm just in a straight, it's like Grichuk instead of Freychild, I'm a no. But if it's Grichuk and Fraley / Steer, that thing you presented, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
This still bets a lot on TJ Friedl.
It does bet a lot on TJ Friedl. Well, every one of these conversations bets a lot on TJ Friedl, right? Because if he's no center fielder, if he is 2024 TJ Friedl, we're screwed. There's just no way around it. If he's 2023 TJ Friedl, well, we might be cooking with gasoline. Exactly. I mean, I don't know that.
All or nothing, baby.
And listen, you and I have probably not done a really good job of stating just how important he is. He's the linchpin.
Well, that's coming.
He's the linchpin in the outfield working or not, because if he is not 2023 TJ Friedl, we've got bigger problems than, what the platoon looks like, because there is nobody. If you saw the spring training invite list that came out, which made both Jeff and I laugh our butts off, there's one. Yes.
And he's not making the opening day roster.
An outfielder on the spring training invite list.
Look,
Hector Rodriguez is not making the opening day roster.
No. And look, Hector Rodriguez has had a fine minor league career to this point. He's not made it to the point that you can say he's ready to make the jump. And quite frankly, his most recent performances last year, there was a lot of swing and miss. Like, we're still talking, not as much as Rhys Hines, but we're talking about comparable to Rhys Hines on the swing and miss. So would you rather have Rhys Hines or Hector Rodriguez? I think at this point, I'd rather have Rhys Hines. So he's going to be in camp too. Like, this was other invites and stuff like that. I just don't see that happening.
Jimmy McFarland with an alternative offer for Taylor Ward to the Angels.
I don't
Connor
think the
Phillips,
Angels do that.
I don't think the Angels. That's just what I was going to say. I don't think the Angels would do this, but if they would, I would make this deal right this second, because Connor Phillips at this point is a wild card. I think he's destined for the bullpen. If you heard our conversation with Doug, he thinks the same. So I would do this deal in a minute right now.
There's too much. There was too much weirdness with what happened to him in 2024. Like, it wasn't that he was walking guys; it's that he wasn't hitting the strike zone at all. Like, he was missing so routinely and so consecutively that they're like, no, you need to go to Goodyear and figure out what it is, which sounds like it's a mechanical problem. If you got mechanical problems with like your delivery and stuff like that, like, there's a good chance we probably don't see him for a little while this year either.
Well, he's got to go back to AAA and show that he can pitch AAA. You know, like because he spent a lot of time. He spent a lot of time in Goodyear last year. So Kerry circles back on the strategy. If in contention, make a deadline deal for an outfielder. Yeah, I think this is a much bigger option than because we're in the offseason, we're not really talking about it. But this is the way. If they're battling and doing well, I could see them going, especially if attendance is good in the first half. I could totally see them going out and getting an outfielder near the deadline to bolster things and make that push for the playoffs.
And to circle back on your take about Luis Robert and it's got to be prospects or you aren't doing it. Luis Robert has a thing in his contract. Like, he has 2 more years of control, but it's club options. So for all intents and purposes, the next 2 years, he's going to make $20 million per year, so long as the team that has him picks up the option. I wonder if the White Sox treat this a little bit like, for them, it's a contract year, but for everybody else, they got to pay for those 2 seasons. Because I don't know that a White Sox team that's probably going to, at best, win 60 games this year picks up a $20 million option next year. I don't know that they let him walk either. I think they'll be aggressive in trying to deal him at the deadline. That might be when the Reds could pounce, but that's when a lot of other teams are going to pounce too. Just get ready for it. The Dodgers, they'll probably send like 700 prospects to Chicago and get Luis Robert, and they'll just play with 12 people on the field, because at that point they're not going to be able to put anybody on the bench.
Let's look at this.
I'm not bitter about it.
Yeah, not at all. Justin says exactly why you should get an outfielder. Can't rely on bounce back years and 2 or 3 spots out there and expect to be competitive. It's a gamble. It's a gamble for sure. A lot of bounce back. Let's talk about this outfield group for just, let's dig in to this outfield group for a second. Because we've got right now Spencer Steer in left, TJ Friedel in center. You've got Fraley and Fairchild available for right field. You've got Rhys Hines in the mix somewhere. We're all in agreement that Will Benson should not see the major league roster in any way, shape, or form to begin this year, that he has to go to Louisville and show so that he figures things out. So we're at 5. Who else?
Maybe Blake Dunn is your 6th guy.
Maybe Blake Dunn is your 6th guy, right? And then nothing really if anybody gets hurt. Nothing.
Not really.
So for me, looking at the current group, absent some surprise signing, Rhys Hines is already on the opening day roster.
Yeah, because you can't just have 4 outfielders.
And I guess assuming that Gavin
Lux,
is
including Spencer Steer as an outfielder.
And then I guess you have to include Gavin Lux and Matt McClain covering some innings in the outfield.
And Santiago Espinal.
And yeah, right. You've got, so that gets you up to like 8 guys.
Please, no, I am joking, Nick. If you're listening, Nick, I'm joking. I
think Gavin Lux is going to see a lot of time out there.
I'd rather see that than Espinal, but yeah.
And I think that Matt McClain is going to see time out there.
I think we see more Lux in the outfield than we see McClain, though.
Okay. I hope so. Matt McClain could be a perpetual Gold Glove second baseman. So
he should be playing mostly second base. I mean, the middle of the field, when healthy, the middle of the Reds field is exactly what Nick Krall has been talking about for years. Nick Krall has always said we want to build from the middle out. And the middle of the field, when healthy, is Tyler Stevenson, Matt McClain, Ellie De La Cruz, and TJ Friedel. That is a very solid, healthy 4. The problem is McClain and Friedel have not been healthy. So got to see what that
right. And that's what Kerry just said in the chat, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
If the outfield group stays healthy, it's not that bad. That's true. If everyone stays healthy for 162 games, plus we hope eventual postseason. Yeah. I think that's more hope than even I'm willing to. Like, someone's going to get nicked. Someone's going to get nicked, and they need one more viable option.
So to go back to, like Justin had mentioned, we're hoping on too many bounce backs. Honestly, as much as we've renamed the Los Angeles Dodgers to the Los Angeles Deferrals, we could rename the Reds to the bounce backs, because we're hoping on health bounce back from TJ Friedel. We're hoping on power bounce back from Jake Fraley. We're hoping on Stuart Fairchild mental bounce back, something there. We're hoping on CES and Noel V. Marte and Jamer Candelario to all bounce back. We're hoping on Matt McLain to bounce back. We're hoping on a couple of the starting pitchers to bounce back from health things. We're hoping on Alexis Diaz to bounce back from not walking so many hundreds of people. We're hoping on Emilio Pagan to bounce back as well. We're hoping on a lot of bounce backs here, because the Reds don't have enough money to pay off the bounce backs. The Dodgers have 40 guys. Their 40-man roster is full of guys who can contribute on a major league level, and their top prospects who are close enough that they can start thinking about that. The Reds, on the other hand, their 26-man roster is full of a lot of guys that we're hoping for. And that's been the biggest difference here. And that's what we wanted to eliminate. I don't think the Reds were ever going to fully eliminate all of that, but I also don't think they've done the best of jobs to eliminate some of that. That's why I'm like C plus B minus when it comes to this offseason, maybe more toward a C plus.
Sean Melvin says McLain at third base unless Marte has a good spring. I don't think a good spring from Marte has me putting him on the major league roster. I'm sending him down.
Really good spring.
And I don't care. He's going to be facing people he should be getting hits off of. It's not going to be no. He has to go down to AAA and show that he has figured stuff out. Because putting him in a situation where you hope that I'm against it. And I'll tell you this, Matt McLain to third base. I'm going to continue to say that if you're going to not play Matt McLain at second base, he should be playing at shortstop. And I know what they've said about Ellie, but the Reds also know that Matt McLain is a better shortstop than Ellie De La Cruz. How do I know that? Because when they called up Ellie, where did Ellie play? He played at third base, and Matt McLain played shortstop. Nothing has changed. Matt McLain is still a better defender. If you want to take the shoulder into account, fine. But I'm telling you, if you're going to play him anywhere else than second base, Ellie needs to shift over to third, where he's going to end up anyway. And you put Matt McLain at shortstop, Gavin Lux at second. That is your best infield alignment.
And I think that's probably why Matt McLain plays a lot of second base, is the shoulder. It's what you mentioned. Like, if you're taking the shoulder into account, second base is pretty much the only spot that you can play him in the field, and then he's going to DH. I think that he's got to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that shoulder can handle much more than just the occasional, little flip to second or flip to first.
See, and I agree from username, Ellie has to move positions eventually. Yes, he does. It's just his body size is going to dictate it, or somebody coming up that's a better defensive shortstop, Edwin Arroyo type, is going to dictate it. But Ellie's going to move. I agree. Do it now. Best defensive alignment.
It's frustrating because I think that I'm with you. Like, I would like to see what he looks like at third base in the spring, and maybe what he looks like in right field as well. But I also think that all of the reporting, everybody that we've talked to about this, has all said, yeah, they're penciling him in at shortstop right now. They're not thinking about him anywhere else. And I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, he can be great at whatever position he plays. I don't want to limit that at all. But I also know that there are some other guys that it feels like they have specific positions that they need to play, and he could move to accommodate that. So that's just my feeling on it. That's a gut feeling. All of the reporting is going against what we're seeing.
And this to make your day, Jeff Carr, from a source inside the Reds front office, not a high level source, but a source. There have been some internal conversations about moving him to center field. Like, they're not serious. Now they're not serious conversations.
He could play right field. He could play wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals because he is that athletic.
Breathe easy. They're not serious conversations yet, but there have been some conversations.
I would like to see it. Would make sense, but I get it if they're thinking of, look, he could be the best, and do we really want to mess with that by saying, okay, we know that you can be the best, but we also need you to move around a bunch. Like, they already have too many guys on this roster that move around a lot, and only one of them really likes that, and he's remaindered to left field right now. So I kind of want to see. I don't know. I'm somewhere in between, like, this making sense, the reporting, and what I want to see. There's an in-between level where I'm just stuck right now. Like, I kind of just want to see it play. I want to watch baseball, I think is what I'm saying.
Yeah, pretty much. It's time. We're not that far away from real baseball, at least happening out in Arizona. So that's going to be great.
Let me do this. I have a question from a Locked On Reds insider from Malachi Hayes. He asked, I would like to know what you think would be the opening day 26-man roster as of right now. He has a bullpen question that follows up with that, but I want to start with that bit first because I think it's mostly decided upon. The only guys that we don't know are the Noelvi Martes of the world, the CESs of the world, and are they going to have a fifth outfielder, or are they going to deem that Gavin Lux, or how does that kind of play out? And then like the final bullpen spot.
I don't think fifth outfielder is the question. Sixth outfielder is the question. Basically, you've got an infield spot, a bench spot. Let's call it a bench spot up for grabs for the infield group, maybe a bench spot up for grabs for the outfield group. You've got one bullpen slot open, maybe. Depending. So of the 26,
and we're just spitballing on this because we're going to have a full episode.
There's probably
down, but yeah,
there's probably 23 guys already cemented on the active roster.
And I think that's why the spring training invite list was so small, because there's not really opportunity to make the opening day roster. I think most of those guys were included on that list just to get a taste of big league camp. And when the first cut downs happen, those are going to be the guys that get cut.
This from John. Ellie in center field, incredible arm, speed, and defender. Good batter. Outfield gets improved substantially. All right, you know what? I'm going to entertain this thought for just a minute. If we're going to move Ellie De La Cruz to the outfield, I don't know that I want him in center. I think he needs to be in a corner with a center fielder out there that's strong-willed enough to kind of keep Ellie in check. Because Ellie in center field, being in charge of the outfield, is going to try to catch balls on the right and left field lines. He's going to try to crash into everything that he can crash into. I need somebody out there. I need somebody out there to help protect Ellie from Ellie, I think. I don't know that I want him in center field.
It feels like that's the biggest obstacle for me to like get really excited about him moving to the outfield, is that there is a learning curve, and it feels like he is just getting over the learning curve of being a Major League Baseball player. Forget about the nuances of whatever position he happens to be playing. I think there's a lot more to it than just he could move out there and do it. I believe he could, but I think that we got to be a little bit more realistic with our expectations if they are moving positions. And I don't think it'd be on an everyday basis. That's the other part of this, is that I think his main position is
he could play corner outfield right now. He could play corner outfield right now.
Yeah.
I don't need him to work on it. I don't need him to work on it in spring training. And in fact, let's not have him work on it in spring training in games. If he wants to take some fly balls, cool. With Eric Davis out there on the backfield, cool. But he could play a corner outfield right now with zero learning curve because he has his lane. And you got the guy in center field to call him off of balls and protect him and do the things and help him with the reads. He could do that. And I would be okay with that. I don't want him in center field.
Because the other problem with this is just the health of Matt McLain. Is Matt McLain ready to play shortstop? Because if he's not ready to play shortstop, Ellie should not.
That changes the conversation.
That's the only reason that Ellie should move, is if Matt McLain can play shortstop, because Edwin Arroyo is not pushing for an opening day roster appointment, and nobody else on this roster plays shortstop well enough to enter into the conversation of should they be there instead of Ellie. Only Matt McLain.
And Edwin Arroyo hasn't played in over a year.
Yeah.
And
he's going to be in spring training, but he's not going to be on.
He's not. It's not happening. Not even a little bit.
If he makes the major leagues this year, it's going to be September at the earliest, I think.
5%. I mean, there's not, I won't say 0 chance, 5% chance. 95% chance he does not
Chances
see.
greater than 0. Yeah, greater than 0 chance.
95. All right, let's maybe get 1 or 2 more here, Jeff, and call it a day. This from Carrie. Can you imagine Ellie stealing homers 6 feet from above the walls? Yeah, I can totally see it. I mean, very, very Junior Griffey, I think, is a good comparison. Early years, Junior Griffey, climbing the wall and doing his things. I could totally.
Was that they talked about maybe raising the wall in right field? It's like, yeah, you raise the wall in right field. Ellie's going to be the only one that robs a home run in right.
So we've been seeing some pictures from the Reds caravan here and there, but not a lot. And for those of you in the comment section that have been out there, please weigh in on this. But I'm ready to call it a dud. Are you ready to call it a dud? I'm ready to call it a dud.
I think it covers the bases, right? Like getting the team out in the community, but it didn't get like the big names out there. Like I still remember meeting Jay Bruce and Brandon Phillips and guys like that on the Reds caravan in years past. And we didn't have that level of star on the team on these trips. I don't feel like.
Your dude Adrian again, Jeff. In regards to trading Candelario, that one point in time, the A's briefly entertained
the SI website.
Briefly entertained the idea of trading for Candelario, but then they went out and signed some free agents. So I think that came off the table. I'm hard pressed to come up with somebody that would reasonably take on that terrible, terrible contract. I mean, if you're going to trade Candy, you're going to have to pay for a lot of his money. And then I don't know how much help that is. So I don't see it.
I think that he is a guy that you have got to see. You got to see him do it this year before he has trade value. I think right now his trade value is nil. Like his trade value is you're sending him to someone and they're sending you the money to pay for his contract.
Right. I think the A's were only even entertaining it because they hadn't signed any free agents yet. And we've talked about they had to get to a certain level of payroll based on the revenue share, right?
And they're close to that. And they just signed Jose Leclerc the other day. So I think they either might be at that or very, very close to the point that adding $16 million to the payroll would not make sense.
There's a couple. Look at this. The guys rushing to defend Jeimer Candelario in the chat, Jeff. Jimmy McFarland's calling it right now. Candy has a good bounce back year, followed immediately by Sean Melvin saying, don't be surprised if Candy is worth his contract this year. What does Jeimer Candelario have to do this year to be worth his contract, Jeff Carr?
I think he's it starts more so with the rate stats than it does with the counting stats because he still hit like 20 homers last year. And there are some folks that pointed to that and say, well, see, his year wasn't all that bad. I think that he's got to be healthy. He's got to play at least 120 games. He's got to hit at least 250. And he's got to get on base 32% of the time, 33% of the time for me to be really excited about him. Because I just think that his back of the baseball card said that he is a platoonless switch hitter, that he can hit both sides well. And when he is healthy, he is a solid asset to have in the, 5th or 6th spot of your lineup. And he just wasn't that last year. Like he was very much every so often he's going to uncork a homer, but he's going to disappear for a little while after that.
What do you want from him in OPS plus? What would satisfy you?
Give me a 105.
105. Do you know what he was last year without looking?
96.
No, lower than that. He was 90. So you want a 15% improvement.
Yeah. I'm not asking for he doesn't have to.
It's not. No. So 2023, his combined OPS plus was where'd it go? 121. So he was 21% better than league average in 2023. 2024 dropped to 90, right? 2022 he had a bad year. He was in the 80s, but 2020, which throw that out. I don't even use 2020 stats, but 2021 in Detroit, 121. So he has reasonably the ability, there's an opportunity for him to be 20% better than league average. I can see it. That would put him. So if he does a 20% improvement, that puts him at 110. For Candy to be worth his contract, I want 115 to 120 for what they're paying him.
That's fair.
115 to 120.
That's fair. I wonder if the expectations changed with last season, and that they realized that they might have overpaid a little bit. But look, you pay what the market determines that you pay, and as we always love to say, this is like fake money. Like, I get it, they get real money, but to our understanding, it's monopoly money. I don't know that he's capable of 120. That sounds like too much for me.
Well, but the back of the baseball card says that he is.
He's done it before.
The back of the baseball card says he was 133 in 2017. He was 137 in 2020, although 121 in 21. He was 126 in Washington in 2023. 121 total on the season between two teams. If he can do that, I'm a happy guy. I will not criticize Jeimer Candelario at all in 2025 if he's playing at a 120 OPS plus clip for the season. I'm happy with that.
I would love that. I mean, if he does that, I don't know. I have to do something fun with that, but I think that he's probably a 105, 110 guy at most. But I do think he bounces back. I think that last year he just could not get any sort of consistency. And that was the biggest problem, is that he was super inconsistent with his production and he would disappear for long periods of time. And this lineup, that was largely the problem with this lineup as a whole.
Look at Jeff, Auntie Darlene weighing in the comment section. Hello, Auntie Darlene.
What's up, Auntie Darlene?
I'm going to come over later and check in on her. If you've met Auntie Darlene out at the ballpark, you have been treated, because she is a delight. When you see her wandering around Great American with me, make sure you say hi to her. All right, Jeff, I think that is a good spot to go ahead and wrap it up for today. We're at the 1 hour mark. Everybody, thanks for bearing with Jeff's technical difficulties. Everything in his office decided to shut down at the same time. So there you go. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked on Reds. We're going to be back in your feed on Monday with a crossover. My good buddy, my nemesis, Ethan from Locked on Pirates, is going to join the show. And we're going to talk a little National League Central and make fun of Ethan. That's what we're going to do. That's what I'm going to do. I don't know what Jeff's plans are, but that's what I'm going to do. So make sure you check that out. Make sure you are subscribed. Click the like button. We are going to continue to monitor the rumors. We're going to monitor the news. We're going to gather up all of the information. We're going to bring it back right here to keep you locked on Reds every single day.